So many of us are on a path, searching for light, for peace, for some kind of awakening. But what if the very tools we're using for that search are actually a trap? What if our highest spiritual ideals are secretly a way for us to avoid our deepest, messiest human stuff? Well, that's the paradox we're going to dive into today. It's a phenomenon called spiritual bypassing, and it's hiding in plain sight.
So where did this term even come from? Well, it was coined by a psychologist named John Welwood way back in the 1980s. He was deeply involved in spiritual communities, and he started noticing this weird pattern. He saw a lot of really sincere people using their spiritual beliefs not to heal, but to actually sidestep the difficult and, frankly, essential work of growing up emotionally and psychologically.
So what is it exactly? Well, at its core, spiritual bypassing is a defense mechanism. It's a really sophisticated form of avoidance that's all dressed up in spiritual language. Now, this isn't about being bad at spirituality, not at all. It's about a deeply human tendency to want to fly before we've really learned to walk on the ground of our own beautiful and, messy humanity.
All right, so to really get our heads around this, here's our game plan. First, we're going to explore why this is such a beautiful, seductive trap. Then we'll meet 4 different faces or personality types that show how this plays out. After that, we'll dig into the mechanics of how it works, and most importantly, we'll look at the path to real integration. We'll wrap it all up with an invitation to true wholeness.
Okay, Section 1, the beautiful trap. The reason this is so tough to spot is because it feels really good. It feels so much more enlightened to say everything is perfect as it is than to sit with raw, painful grief or anger. And that feeling right there, that's the trap.
Section 2, the 4 faces of avoidance. So how does this actually show up in real life? Well, we can look at 4 key profiles that really bring this to life. Recognizing these is the first step to seeing how this might be playing out for us or the people around us. Let's meet the first one.
First up, we have the transcendent avoider. Now, this is the person who is armed to the teeth with spiritual knowledge. They've read all the books, maybe even had some genuine, powerful transcendent experiences. And they use all of that to build a worldview where normal human problems, relationship issues, money worries, are just illusions of the ego.
Yeah, you might hear them say something just like this. It sounds so profound, right? They keep what you could call a perpetual spiritual altitude. It's like they're flying at 30,000 feet, looking down at the messy world below, but they never ever land the plane. It's a brilliant defense, really, framing emotional distance as some kind of spiritual achievement.
So what's the hidden cost? Well, while they might seem incredibly zen, they often really struggle with genuine human connection. Their relationships can feel a bit ghostly. There's no real depth or grit. And all those emotions they're avoiding, they don't just vanish. They tend to leak out sideways, often as this mysterious anxiety or a low-grade depression they can't quite explain. Okay, next up is a profile that is maybe the most common one of all, the selective transcender. This is somebody who is a genuine spiritual life, but they apply the concept selectively. They tend to pull out a spiritual idea right when they're faced with an emotion that makes them uncomfortable. And again, this sounds so mature, doesn't it? And sometimes it is. But the bypass happens when this is used to skip a really crucial step. For instance, say they get really hurt by a friend. Instead of letting themselves feel that sting of betrayal or anger, they might jump straight to, what's the spiritual lesson here? They skip right over the raw feeling part.
The good news is, these folks are often the closest to real integration. Their path forward, their big growth opportunity, is all about awareness. They already have the tools. They just need to start noticing when and why they switch from a psychological mode to a spiritual one. They just need to ask themselves, am I using this idea to truly understand my experience, or to run away from it?
Now, this isn't all about what goes wrong. Let's look at the goal. On the healthier end of the spectrum, we've got the balanced explorer and the integrated seeker. These 2 profiles really show us what it looks like to move towards and then finally achieve real, authentic integration.
Okay, let's break these 2 down because this shows us the actual journey. On the left, you've got the balanced explorer. This person is consciously doing the work. They're walking that tightrope, making sure, like their quote says, to work through their hurt first before they jump to forgiveness. They have a ton of self-awareness, but hey, they're still human. Under major stress, they might slip back into bypassing. Now look to the right, the integrated seeker. This is where it all comes together. For them, it's not a conscious effort anymore. It's just how they live. They are genuinely comfortable with the full spectrum of human emotion. They don't try to sit with pain. Their natural response is to just allow it, embracing their full humanity as the very heart of their spiritual life. It's a way of being.
Section 3. The mechanics of bypassing. All right, so we've seen what it looks like. Now let's get into the how. How do we actually use these beautiful spiritual ideas to prop up our old psychological defenses?
The number one mechanism is something called the premature transcendence trap. And the metaphor here is perfect. It's like trying to build the second story of a house when you haven't even poured the foundation. You can't genuinely transcend a painful experience, like a betrayal, by just focusing on the lesson before you've actually let yourself live in and process the raw feelings of hurt and anger and grief that go with it.
And this attempt to transcend too early often comes out as a kind of spiritual superiority complex. I bet you've heard some of these phrases. I don't do drama. Oh, that's just your ego talking. Each one of these sets up a subtle hierarchy. It frames the speaker as more evolved and makes the other person's valid emotional reaction seem less than. Even a phrase as lovely as "I'm sending love and light" can be a tool for avoidance if it's used to shut down a difficult but necessary conversation. Section 4. The path to integration. So what's the fix? What's the solution? Well, it's definitely not about abandoning spirituality. It's about healing the split. It's about learning how to hold our messy, psychological reality in one hand and our spiritual potential in the other at the exact same time.
Okay, let's get really practical. Here is a fantastic, concrete tool you can use. It's the RAIN practice. So the next time a difficult emotion comes up, instead of trying to love and light it away, you walk through these steps. First, recognize what you're feeling. Just name it. Then, allow it to be there, without judgment. Then, you gently investigate. What does this feeling need from me? And finally, non-attachment. This means holding the whole experience with deep compassion, not trying to fix it or make it go away. And remember, true integration isn't just something that happens in your head. It has to be holistic. It's like a three-legged stool. You need the body because our emotions and traumas live in our physical selves. We need grounding practices to feel safe enough to feel. You need the mind to understand the stories and patterns we live by. And you need the spirit to connect to something larger than ourselves. You can't just pick one. They all have to work together.
Section 5. An invitation to wholeness. When you strip it all away, this entire topic isn't really a critique. It's an invitation. It's an invitation to stop trying so hard to escape our humanity and to start embracing it as the very foundation of a truly authentic spiritual path. The great mystic poet Rumi just said it so perfectly. The path isn't about becoming so spiritual that we don't have wounds anymore. The path is about learning to meet our wounds with so much presence, so much compassion, that they become the very doorway for the light we were looking for all along. So I'll leave you with this question to ponder. Is your messy, emotional, complicated, beautiful humanity an obstacle that you need to transcend and get over? Or is it the very soil, the very ground in which your most authentic awakening can finally take root and grow? The true promise isn't to become something other than human, but to become fully and courageously human, and to find the divine that was waiting there the whole time.